guys, welcome back to the Shannon Show. Hello if you're new. So today's video is going to be a review of the Willoughbys, which just dropped on Netflix. So Netflix has come out with another animated film and it's been billed as a PG, so in essence it is family friendly. And going into this I was quite excited to watch this film. Netflix has been coming out with a lot of animated series and films, and for the most part they've been pretty decent. I personally have been trying to get more into animation, as admittedly I do have live action bias. The cast in it has some big names. It has Ricky Gervais, it has Terry Crews, and notably it has the singer Alessia Cara in it, and this was her first voice acting role. So I was quite intrigued to see how she did in the film. So in terms of what the film is about, I feel like the initial plot of the film is Willoughbys. In the past, there used to be this tight-knit, nurturing, loving family, but the latest generation of the Willoughbys is headed by these neglectful parents who basically just leave their kids to their own devices. They don't really take care of them and they view them as a burden, but somehow they just keep popping them out. Like, they didn't even take the time to actually name their twins separately. That's kind of how much they care about their kids. Tim, the eldest out of the Willoughby gang, fantasizes about the past generation and wants to restore functionality to the Willoughby name. And Tim's endeavors to have a functional family takes us on this wild adventure which has lots of themes attached to it in terms of what is family, who makes family, things of that nature. Now, I think in terms of what I thought about the whole family dynamic, the whole family storyline, I think as a concept, it was good, but I'm not sure if it was executed well for a PG, family-friendly-ish film, especially if this is like adults supposed to be watching this with their kids. I can only imagine it would either be really funny, ironic, or it could be a bit awkward because I'm quarantining with my parents and yeah. Close proximity all the time, you get on each other's nerves. I'd be interested to hear from people who have watched this with their families. How did you find it? Was it funny? Was it a bit awkward? What did you think? I feel like maybe adults would connect or get or find perhaps funny the family dynamic more than children. I'm not sure if children would get, especially younger children, so children under 7, because it's not like it was something like Cruella de Vil, because even though they are villainous, it isn't a kind of overtness, in your face, sensationalized villain that children are probably used to seeing. It's not overt, it's very subtle, very adult, I think. So I'm not sure if children are going to be able to connect or get on board with the family dynamic. Yeah. In terms of the narrative, the writing, obviously it's based off of a book of the same name. I haven't read that book, so I don't really have anything to compare to in terms of the adaptation. The execution of the narrative and the writing and things that were written sometimes were lacking or a bit underwhelming or a bit uninteresting, and I think the pacing let down the narrative quite a bit. I think in the first half of the film it was a bit boring. Like, my interest was slowly dwindling until the character of the nanny is introduced. When the nanny is introduced, that's when things pick up and that's when things start to become a bit more engaging, a bit more entertaining. And I think for some viewers, I think the first half of the film might lose a few people, especially with people who only give things a certain amount of time to hold their attention. So I think a lot of people who are like that, who give films 20-30 minutes before they switch off, might be tempted to click that switch off button, because the first half was a bit uninteresting. Obviously it's a PG film. I'm not really sure if even children would be that engaged with the first half of the film. Obviously there is a bit of action, a bit of a dilemma that we get in the beginning of the film. I'm not really sure if that would draw in, if a child viewer would find the first dilemma that the children have to deal with interesting. In terms of me as a young adult viewer, I didn't really find it that interesting. In terms of after the Nanny, obviously it picks up quite a bit. It picks up significantly, and it was enough to hold me for the rest of the film. But I feel like the action came in a bit too late, and it kind of just felt like you're at a restaurant, you know, you're excited to have the food, and then they just took ridiculously long with the food. And by the time the food comes out, you're not really excited about the food anymore. That's what watching this film was kind of like to me. I still somewhat enjoyed the film. I definitely enjoyed the second half and the last half of the film more. But overall, I think what they did wasn't enough for me to come away from this experience feeling very satisfied. So in terms of the character, let's get onto the characters. So the first character, Ricky Gervais, he was also the narrator of the film. Kind of comes and goes in the film. In the second half, he kind of just disappears. So I feel like the voiceover was a bit inconsistent, and I'm not really sure if they needed the voiceover, to be honest. I just feel like they should have just made him the cat character, talking cat. Obviously we hear him as the narrator, but in the film when he's interacting with other characters, we just see him as a cat meowing. I guess in terms of Ricky Gervais's style, I guess, you know, you either like Ricky Gervais's style or you don't. He has a very specific, I don't really care, deadpan comedy. That's his kind of shtick. It's not my favourite type of comedy, but I think he can definitely get away with it in this film because he is playing a cat, and cats are kind of notorious for like being boring or not really caring about things. Again, I have to say, because it is a PG film, it's still kind of targeted at kids. I'm not sure if the kids are going to connect to the cat, because his type of comedy, I think, is more digestible to adults rather than kids, because with kids, animated, especially in the animated film, they're probably expecting or would appreciate a more animated style. So I'm not really sure if Ricky Gervais as the cat will go down well with kids. I think pretty much the whole cast was pretty solid. They did what they did with the material. Terry Crews was solid. Will Forte as Tim did pretty decent as the eldest sibling. Like, obviously Alessia Cara, this is her first role as a voice actor. I think you could definitely tell that this was her first role in comparison to the other experienced actors. She did an okay job. I think that's definitely on the director rather than Alessia, but I kind of suspect that her inclusion in this film was a deal between the filmmakers and her label, because I'm not gonna lie, her character singing every 5 to 10 minutes got a little bit annoying. It kind of felt like it was the label trying to plug this song, because obviously she's made a soundtrack song to it. I could have done with a little bit less, and I think what made it a bit annoying was the fact that it had this kind of reverb on it than the rest of the sound. But the song is in my head, so maybe they were successful with getting the song in people's heads. I think my favourite character, the standout voice actor, was Maya Rudolph as the nanny. For me, she basically carried this film on her back. She was the highlight. She was the only person keeping me engaged in the film. And if I wasn't watching to review, the only reason I would have stayed is because of her. Shout out to Maya Rudolph. She really did the nanny. She really sold me. She was hilarious, and I'd love to see her in other projects. So obviously it has got some big comedic names in it. Ricky Gervais, Terry Crews, they're both known for comedy content. And in terms of the comedic tone of the film, I think, you know, Ricky Gervais fans are definitely going to find Ricky Gervais as the cat funny. I think overall the quality of the comedy was pretty decent. Even with the family, they did manage to get a few giggles out of me. You know, the twins definitely got a few giggles out of me, and the nanny as well. She cracked me up. There's a certain scene in the film with the nanny and Tim, and that whole scene was hilarious, and I think that was probably my favourite scene. In terms of the animation style, I feel like the animation was solid. I did have a couple issues with it though, because, you know, some of the animation style do differ, and I just prefer to have everything succinct. You know, overall as a production, it looked and it sounded sleek. In terms of who it's for, I'm not really sure, to be honest, because the way that it's marketed and what is included in the film, I feel like sometimes doesn't really match up. So it's kind of labeled as this family film, but I'm not sure if all of the family will be able to enjoy it. I think there is bits in there for adults, there's bits in there for children, but they're kind of spaced out into different sections. Like the beginning is more kind of catered towards adults, and then the second half is centered more towards kids. It's kind of mixed up and jumbled up, and then on top of that they've marketed it to different audiences. So it's clearly marketed at Ricky Gervais fans, which is going to bring Ricky Gervais's fans to the movie, but past Ricky Gervais, I'm not sure if the Ricky Gervais fans will enjoy the rest of the movie past Ricky Gervais's character. Same with Terry Crews fans, they'll come for Terry Crews, but I'm not sure if they'd stay for the rest of the film. Alessia Cara's fan, she's going to bring in a lot of her fans, especially for the simple fact that she's singing through most of the film. That's going to bring her fans in it. I think Alessia Cara fans, the die-hard ones, will stay for the whole of the film. I think that's a guaranteed, to support obviously Alessia Cara. But I feel like the marketing is a bit discombobulated. It doesn't really seem like there is a clear audience here. It's kind of just like a free-for-all. Come if you like it, if you don't like it, then fair dues. Yeah, does anyone else kind of feel that way, or do you feel like there is a clear audience here? And if you do feel like it's a clear audience, do let me know who you think the film is for. Overall, it's an okay watch. I personally wouldn't prioritize. Like I said, I'm not really sure if it's even family friendly in terms of the whole family enjoying it. I was expecting a bit more, so I'm a bit disappointed, but I think taking everything into account, I'm going to give it half marks, 2.5 out of 5. I think the beginning was just way too slow, but there is enough in there to hold your attention. But I think by the end of it, I was wanting a bit more. But for those of you who haven't watched it, let me know if this is something that you are or were interested in watching. If you have watched it, do let me know what you thought of it. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was okay? Who were your favourite characters, and what was your favourite scene in the movie? And what would you rate this film out of 5? Subscribe if you haven't yet, and if you have, don't forget to press that notification bell so you know when the next review is dropping. Till next time guys, bye!